So thanks so much. My name is Diandra. My pronouns are she and dad, and I live on unceded Gidimt'en territory. I'm a PhD candidate at SFU in geography, and my research explores young people's experience of and resistance to work and capitalism in BC. The emerging ideas and reflections that I'm sharing with you today are one part of this project. So this past summer, young food service workers from Vancouver aired grievances about their working conditions on Instagram. While their grievances existed prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, these workers were inspired by the deplatforming tactics popularized by the movement for Black Lives. On Instagram, these workers shared experiences of workplace abuses common to the precarious industries. In doing this, they built communities of complaint, leveled demands against their employers, and in some cases, fundamentally changed their workplaces. Today, I'm going to share some examples from this wave of complaint and start to situate their grievances in a grievance theory. For me, grievance theory describes how workers, in lieu of traditional labor organizing, create claims about their working conditions and a desire for safer and fairer conditions for themselves and their coworkers. So for this work, I've been reviewing Instagram posts containing work-related grievances. Instagram, as a site of data collection and geography, has what Carolyn Harris calls our particular value. Instagram posts give qualitative researchers rich and messy data that, when paired with other qualitative approaches, can give researchers extremely valuable insights that cannot be obtained from big data approaches. As a youth researcher, there's also incredible use of Instagram by people under the age of 35. And so it's a really great site for where young people create knowledge about their lives. So all examples I share today are publicly available. But because these sessions are being recorded, I've actually covered up the names and personal handles just to keep a bit of privacy. Finally, because some workers make grievances about sexual assault, I want to offer a content warning that I'll be sharing screenshots about 3 Vancouver-based businesses, including Matchstick, Parallel 49, and What's Up Hot Dog. So context. The accommodation and food services industry in BC includes jobs such as restaurant and food service managers, cooks, servers, food counter attendants, including baristas, kitchen helpers, and light-duty cleaners. Precarity is embedded in the fabric of this industry through mechanisms like the server wage, lack of HR infrastructure in the workplace, and the prevalence of part-time and temporary work. The industry also faces high rates of gender-based harassment and violence. In their research with baristas, Brickner and Dalton argue that gendered power dynamics are built into the structure of employment relationships in this industry. From the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic, workers in this industry suffered the highest job losses in the province. In March and April of this year, 112,000 jobs were lost, and 48,000 of those were people under 25 years old. In BC, 208,000 people under the age of 25 received CERB. And the unemployment rate for this age group peaked to 30.3% in June of this year, compared to 10.7% last year. So while some of these jobs are unionized, I haven't been able to find stable statistics on rates of unionization for the overall industry. So at the end, if anyone has suggestions, that would be incredibly helpful. Next, I'm going to share with you 3 examples of grievances that were posted on Instagram and talk a bit about the context of each case and what the outcomes have been. So the first example is Not Our Cafes. So Matchstick is a Vancouver-based company that runs a coffee roaster and 5 cafes. On June 27th of this year, they posted that they would be closed for 2 days for an all-staff training, and on July 1st, they posted an infographic with a list of values that included things like showing up to say, "Do you need anything?" acknowledging diversity of experience, and family, solidarity, and equality. 3 days later, on July 4th, a former employee of Matchstick posted on their personal Instagram a carousel of word-based images about their experience working there. Their post detailed their experiences of bullying and harassment at the company, saying that their boss's attitude and behavior can flip like a switch, reflecting that you emotionally get beaten down, and identifying the manipulation and gaslighting they experience. That worker also detailed being told to brush off racism and sexism, as well as unfair wage practices required to leverage a promotion. The original Instagram post, which is still public, inspired the creation of a now defunct account called Not Our Cafes that shared dozens of posts full of stories of bullying, sudden firings, weeks with no days off, double shifts lasting 14 hours, unpaid overtime, and sexual harassment. In all of these complaints was a call for the resignation of the owners of Matchstick. On July 9th, Matchstick posted a resignation letter from the company saying that they were divesting from the business. All pictures and mentions of previous owners and managers have been removed from their website, and people continue to comment on their Instagram posts asking for accountability. So not our P49. Parallel 49 is a popular Vancouver-based brewery with a large restaurant and tasting room in the popular East Van neighborhood. P49 does not have an HR department, and the workplace is an anti-union environment where there have been 2 attempts to unionize front of house staff in the last few years. The Instagram account Not Our P49 started posting on July 15th. Similar to Not Our Cafes, the posts about Parallel 49 detailed toxic and harmful workplace practices. In the examples here, staff share facing abuse from a senior staff member with no process available to take a complaint, low pay and limited access to promotions, being fired for disagreeing with supervisors, leadership's tolerance for sexual harassment, and no clear expectation of pay. These practices amount to what Ben Anderson calls small ponds of nepotism, exploitation, patriarchy, and white supremacy. The workers who run the Not Our P49 account excuse me, have shown how they've reached out to leadership at the company with a list of actions that P49 could do as accountability measures. Some of these include the resignation of senior staff, the payment of a living wage, and a union to protect all employees. On July 19th and 24th, P49 posted on Instagram responding to Not Our P49 and committed to hiring an HR professional, delivering sensitivity training, working with staff to identify how the workplace does not match their key values, and exploring partnerships with BIPOC and queer communities. On September 30th, Not Our P49 posted that the company continues to evade accountability, sharing their responses to P49's commitments and demanding more action. Okay, the last example is What's Up Hot Dog. So What's Up Hot Dog was a popular punk rock vegan hangout in the Hastings Sunrise neighborhood in East Vancouver. Due to ongoing allegations of sexual violence, harassment, and predation by the owner and a former manager, some existing workers posted on the business's Instagram. Sorry. Okay, great, thanks. Some existing workers posted on the business's Instagram on August 14th about how they as a staff plan to address the issues brought forward. Those who experienced violence at the hands of the owner or former manager, as well as the community surrounding the workers, called for the immediate resignation of the owner and sale of the business. The original post was deleted by the owner, despite a commitment to keep communications and decision-making transparent. Within the next 5 days, a public post was made sharing the identity of one of the new owners, and a follow-up post was made by the staff sharing their side of the story and their commitment to changing the culture in the workplace. In that post, which is here on the slide, they shared how their pressure as a body of workers influenced the decision to change ownership. Comments by workers on the post highlighted how previous ownership impacted the safety of the staff and how the relationship between the previous owner and staff had a very low level of trust, and they as staff experienced ongoing betrayal. In addition to new ownership, the restaurant has since changed its name, menu, and undergone minor aesthetic renovations. As of October 1st, customers continue to ask for accountability measures and comments on the business's Instagram posts. Oh, there we go. So grievance theory. So in a union environment, we know a grievance can be when any worker has a complaint that points to a violation in the collective agreement. However, Kirk shares that 76% of individuals tend to leave employment before they make a claim, and a further 17% end employment after submitting a grievance. Further, in the context of collective bargaining, grievances demand financial compensation from employers rather than preventative measures discouraging exploitation. So when there isn't a union in place like these 3 workplaces I use as examples today, workers are only able to resolve the grievance directly with management. However, if the worker has experienced harassment, threats, or predation from their employer, they're unlikely to be convinced that their grievance will be accepted fairly, and they understand very deeply that their complaint could lead to further abuse and possible termination. Sarah Ahmed argues that these outcomes are what she calls the cost of complaint, but people complain because not complaining can sometimes be as costly as complaining. For Ahmed, a complaint is a refusal to cope with a situation that is unjust and a desire for a world in which those violences and those injustices do not happen. Further, I believe because of the temporality of the Instagram complaints happening at the same time as the economic impact of COVID-19 on the industry, as well as the political, social, and economic actions tied to the rise of the movement for Black lives, I believe that these workers' complaints have gained traction and had an impact because of concurrent political mobilization. Rather than relying on the formation of the union as a primary source of collective action in worker and employer relationships, Instagram accounts like NotRP49 create opportunities for workers to share grievances and show other workers in the industry what is wrong about their workplaces by actively sharing what they feel is wrong about their workplaces. In feminist pedagogies, this is also a form of consciousness raising. Curail argues that the increased visibility of ongoing protests sends signals to individuals and encourages them to participate in protest activities and to publicly voice their dissatisfaction. This is because if there are visible opportunities to express dissatisfaction, like these Instagram accounts, citizens who face adverse economic conditions are more likely to protest. In this way, Instagram posts containing worker grievances can also create opportunities for unions and other political organizations to better mobilize these affected workers. However, because the increased experience of bullying and harassment in precarious workplaces has become a critical site of complaint, a union's desire, or like traditional desire to focus on pay, or even political mobilizations around minimum wage may no longer hold sufficient draw for fragmented precarious workers. Further, these Instagram grievances clearly point to the entrenched marginalization of workers because of their gender, race, citizenship status, or ability. And so unions and political movements must also be able to meet grieved workers on these issues. What I think is really cool about these Instagram grievances is that while workers mobilize a body of complaint about their workplace, they follow up with direct demands for desired change and accountability from their employers. This means that their grievances are already forming a body of labor organizing. Because their demands focus on increased professionalization in the workplace and stronger policies to reduce bullying and harassment, these workers are then politically available for further mobilization by unions and political movements that have the capacity to engage these workers around issues that they are interested in. Thanks.